Chapter 6. In the middle of April, ᎢᎪᎪ received an invitation to speak at his alma mater, inviting him to lecture at the 100th anniversary of the school. Naturally, he would agree. When he stood upon the square lecture stage, ᎢᎪᎪ's gaze swept over the faces brimming with youthfulness. His heart suddenly thought, one girl had listened to every single one of his lectures in the past. Perhaps, every time he stood on stage, she could hear every word he spoke, full of admiration. Then what about today? Was she here? Was it even possible to pick ᎢᎪ's figure out of the masses here? She was there. She stood at the very back, watching his free and easy figure. This school wasn't just ᎢᎪᎪ's alma mater, it was also ᎢᎪ's. She had followed in ᎢᎪᎪ's footsteps and lived in this school for 4 years. Now, she had finally sobered up and realized that perhaps some goals could only remain goals. Paying attention to ᎢᎪᎪ had already become a bad habit that she acquired. She had always thought, one day I'll make ᎢᎪᎪ's heart soften, but that day won't be today. Thus, she had never managed to make any progress toward her goal. When the lecture was almost complete, she silently left. She went to go visit a professor from the university. She met him in the office, and the two of them conversed extremely happily. Professor Jiang asked about ᎢᎪ's work circumstances with great concern. She was silent for a moment, only telling him that she had just quit her job. Young people should bear some more hardships. Professor Jiang spoke like this, but she wouldn't explain why she had quit her job. After sitting down for a while longer, she wanted to stand up and leave, but she saw a figure walk past the entrance and immediately became foolishly entranced. ᎢᎪᎪ didn't think that he would see she here either. He was startled, and an indescribable happiness burst forth in his heart. His lips slightly lifted, and his grave face brightened upon seeing she. Had she been unwilling to meet him, ᎢᎪᎪ felt a bit resentful. After such a long period, did she not even want to see him? The two people used to be Professor Zheng's favorite pupils. The teacher happily introduced the two people, and then said to ᎢᎪᎪ, "This girl is your worshipper." The first day she came to school, she said she wanted to become exactly like ᎢᎪᎪ. "Professor," she suddenly said, "I no longer think that way." ᎢᎪᎪ became startled. He coldly looked at she but saw that there was no show of quick-wittedness in her eyes. ᎢᎪᎪ felt his heart suddenly burst with pain, just like how he had felt that day when he had dropped she off at the bus stop, all alone. Professor Jiang also slightly started. Right at that moment, some students came in to find him, so Professor Jiang went out with them. Only she and ᎢᎪᎪ were left in the office. It was awkward and silent. She didn't know how long she had sat down, but she suddenly got up, almost as if she didn't see anyone in the room. Without another word, she directly turned and left. ᎢᎪᎪ didn't know whether he was feeling angry or pained. Before he realized what he had done, he had already grasped she tightly. She lowered her head and said, "Mr. Gu, what do you mean by this?" ᎢᎪᎪ didn't know what he meant by this either. His heart internally cursed himself for being such an unfathomable mystery, but he pretended he was extremely calm, like an elder instructing a student. "Quit your job? Do you think you're a little kid playing some game? Do you think you can just give up on a job like this?" She was silent for a long time. In the end, she looked up, and looked straight into ᎢᎪᎪ's eyes, as she said, "I've liked you for 6 years. I've fought for you, with you as my goal, but in the end, I found that I was having to stand on the very tips of my toes. When I reached my hands out, I couldn't touch you, almost as if you were like a star. Uncle, Mr. Gu, I didn't let go of my job easier. I let go of my job only because you never knew how important you were to me." ᎢᎪᎪ slightly blanked out, but then he heard she say, "Mr. Gu, if you don't like me, then don't hold on to me." She said, "I will misunderstand." Her calm voice was filled with traces of grief. She pried ᎢᎪᎪ's hand off, finger by finger. Only then did Gu Yuan realize how painful his actions had been to her. When he saw she slowly walk away, Gu Yuan only felt his heart empty. He softly said, I like you too. Actually, I already started liking you a long time ago. But by then, you had already given up. Gu Yuan stood alone in the room for a while, but then he began to grab at his hair, extremely vexed. Then, he walked out. When he went around the corner, he saw a girl crying with tears and snot running down her face. Gu Yuan's heart began to jump heavily. She said, if you pursue me, I'll consider it. I'll pursue you. End of story.